Now, press secrecy in the White House has hit some comical new levels. Now, the Trump administration, as you may or may not have been paying attention to, has actually started to cut down on the number of press conferences it gives that occur on camera. That's why you haven't been seeing a lot of Spicy lately. He hasn't been doing a lot of these press conferences, and they've actually cut down the number of press conferences they've been doing, and the ones that they do are no longer on camera. They can't really be recorded anymore. You might get some audio clips out of that. They're even trying to cut that down. Okay. Now, Spicy, he's not hiding in the bushes anymore. I'm sorry, among the bushes anymore. He's just not on camera. They're straight up avoiding the cameras. And it's not just him. Of course, it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is right now sharing the duties of press secretary with Sean Spicer, as he's actually trying to look for somebody to replace him at his job. Good luck, Spicy. Nobody's dumb enough to take that. Now, Sanders, she announced on Thursday's press briefing, so this happened yesterday, she announced before it happened that this would not be recorded on camera. Now, again, that's a lot of what the press briefings have been lately, unfortunately. Now, to show you how ridiculous this has gotten, Sanders also declared that the announcement of the briefings not being allowed on camera was also not allowed to be announced, not allowed to be reported. Wait a minute. So the news, so they hand out this stuff to the press. Hey, you're not able to record this press briefing. Oh, and by the way, you're also not allowed to report that you cannot record the press briefing. What? No, that is, again, that would be super, super funny if it actually weren't super sad, because, again, this has to do with the free press and the health of our democracy. So, again, the reporters were not allowed to report that the press conference was not to be recorded or reported or something like that. Amazing. What happened to the free press? Now, look, longtime viewers, you guys know that I've got a big problem with corporate media, right? Everybody knows this. Now, I rail against the corporate media because I think that they can do a good job. They can do a better job. And they've actually shown that they can do a good job from some of their reporting. And whether it be some of the reporting on Donald Trump or some of the reporting on Hillary Clinton, some of the reporting on corruption, they can do a good job. So I want them to do a good job continuously. I want them to prioritize doing good journalism over access journalism. And so, look, and a lot of the people, that have heard this story already and have given some feedback on it, well, they're like, well, okay, well, why doesn't the press corps just stop trying to go and cover what Sean Spicer and Sarah Huckabee Sanders say and actually do some journalism? I'm actually in favor of that. But at the same time, this sets a terrible precedent, because you're actually supposed to have a press pool that is supposed to ask questions, and the administration is supposed to get the response, and you're supposed to get that on camera. Because then, of course, that leads to it leads to accountability, basically, and that's what we want. Now, I don't want to destroy the media. Now, that's different, because the right wing, they actually do want to destroy a free and independent press. And they actually went and created their own press that does propaganda. And so now they're trying to destroy all the other press outlets that don't do their propaganda for them. They label them fake news, and, they attack them. And sometimes literally, in the case of course, Ben Jacobs, who worked for The Guardian, got body slammed by new Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte. I know, I still can't believe it. He won. Look, the whole point of the press, though, is to be able to ask tough questions and to hold elected officials accountable. That's what I want the press to do. I don't want to destroy them. I don't care if it's a Democrat, a Republican, or a Green Party member, whoever. If you're in power, I want you held accountable. So for the things that you do right, and also for the things that you do wrong. For their votes, for their rhetoric, everything. That's what a free press is supposed to be. And that's what I rail against the corporate media for sometimes not doing. Okay, and putting profit, of course, over and access over everything else. So with that aside, I also have to put out the caveat that I know our press helped create this monster in Donald Trump. They helped build this administration. They elevated him, and they did what they call the Pied Piper strategy. Now, I think in the long term, I really hope that they had learned their lesson from that horrible mistake. And look, some of them, I believe some of them have. I believe some of them have not. So to be fair, right? I think some of them have woken up and they are starting to ask the tough questions. They realize their mistake that they made. They let this clown show of Donald Trump go way, way too far. And I'm hoping that they're going to take steps in the future to prevent something like this from happening again. Now, the Trump response, however, to this whole thing is not to, be transparent and answer questions, but to make basically an enemy out of the media, and also to restrict more and more access to people who are supposed to be spokesmen or spokeswomen for the president. When I say, well, don't worry, we're only doing this because we found other ways of getting the president's message out to the people. What do you mean, Twitter? Yeah, good luck with that, man. Good luck. But they're trying to justify it, of course, by saying, well, no, we're going to get Trump's message and his policies out without the filter of the mainstream corporate media. But what they really want to do, actually, is hide from a media that is actually asking some tough questions. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want you to know what they're doing or saying, unless it's been pre-approved. You know why? It's because Donald Trump's such an idiot that he sends these press people out. They do these press conferences, and then 2 hours later, Donald Trump says something completely different and makes them look stupid. Okay? They don't want to continue to be embarrassed in that way. And we saw when that happened, okay? Now, ultimately, though, the Trump administration, a lot of right-wingers, they don't want any challenges to authority. They don't want any facts. They don't want any journalism. They don't like journalism. Now, can you think of a country, any kind of country that runs the press like that? Now, look, I'm aware that Donald Trump wasn't the only president who's actually wanted to cut down on press freedom. But he's actually been very successful at shutting it down and actually turning people against the press. Or at least playing on the fact that there are legitimate criticisms of the press that make people not trust them. And I realize I've said a lot of them. And I believe in a lot of them. I do believe that there are some major problems with the way that our press is right now. That doesn't mean I'm against press freedom. It means I want to fix it. I want to make it better. And we should want to make it better. Now, the difference between us and them, again, is that Trump and the Republicans, they just hate the idea of journalism. They hate the facts. And while there certainly is spin in mainstream corporate media, lots of it, largely the things that they tend to report on, if they actually deem it necessary to report on, because, let's be honest, they didn't report on Standing Rock. They didn't really report on Flint all that much. Super important issues. But when they do report on something, they generally try to come at it from a factual basis. You can go back and you can verify the facts and the stories that they've used. Now, old administrations, of course, don't like it when the press goes after them, of course. President Obama wasn't a fan of it. Bush hated it. All right? They all didn't like the press, but they still held briefings because of a free press, and freedom of information is an important cornerstone to a functioning democracy. Now, this is as CNN's Jim Acosta pointed out in a recent tweet storm. Now, Acosta's been a huge, huge pain in the ass towards Donald Trump, especially when it comes to the issue of press freedom. Now, he said on closing down the briefings and making them so that you can't really record them, he said, this is different. It's a briefing without the cameras. Why is that? The reason why is that your government doesn't want you to see and hear what they're doing in the United States of America. The United States of America should respect the freedom of the press. You know that freedom? It's in the Constitution of the USA. Yes, that is in the First Amendment. Now, he also makes one final point that I think is really, really telling. Since, of course, you don't see a lot of right-wingers coming out against this lack of transparency from their government. He asked, what would the GOP say if Hillary Clinton were to shut down the cameras in the briefing room and the media just went along with it? That's a good question. I think I know the answer to that. Oh my God, crooked Hillary. She is murdering the First Amendment. She is literally going out there and shooting the First Amendment. How dare you? How dare you, Hillary? Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up. That's the response. But when Donald Trump does the same thing, he shuts down the media, everybody's like, good, great, yes. Fake media, fake news, sad. Look, you know who would be against Hillary Clinton if she did that? Me. You see, I believe in a free and open press. I believe the press can be better. I believe we need to work on the press and change the corporate structure of the press to where it actually represents the people and asks tough questions. But you can't do that if you shut down the press. You can't do that if you increasingly create a tighter circle of people that are pre-approved to ask you softball questions. People like fucking Hugh Hewitt and people like Alex Jones that has press credentials now in Breitbart magazine. You think they're going to ask Trump tough questions? Hell no. Just like you had some of the mainstream media asking Hillary Clinton softballs. That didn't fly with me either. I want a media that is tough, but it's fair on everybody and doesn't bow to people in power. And fortunately, since Trump is in power, we are starting to see our media not bow to him in certain circumstances. And that's good. And I would like to see that more uniform across the board without, taking party or power into consideration. Everyone needs to be challenged. Everyone. But again, they don't like this, okay? Now, the point is, of this whole rant, screed, whatever, is that, look, we cannot have a functional democracy without accountability, and that accountability comes through good journalism. Now, if you remove the ability for the press to record statements from the administration, well, that happens to be a big blow to the aims of democratic governments. You're not able to get that accountability. There's a lot of people like, oh, well, what'd they say? Well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders said something completely crazy. Well, okay, where's the proof? Well, we don't have it on camera. We're not allowed to record this. Well, it's my word against yours. What am I going to believe? The fake media? Of course not. So that's one of the problems that we have with not being able to record press briefings, which actually turns out to be a very, very important issue. So, look, I think there's reason to worry here. And yes, it does sound kind of comical at first when you're actually trying to hide press briefings and hide the fact that they can't record those press briefings anymore. But really, when you drill down into it, you realize that it actually is and can lead to some very problematic things, especially for a democracy that depends on a free and open press. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.